T-minus 30.
Hit the record button.
Nope, you did not see that coming, and here we go again. I'm doing it again one more time. This is Italo from Italo's Blackbird Radio. Welcome again. This is, I don't know how many episodes I've done during the quarantine. But yeah, here we go. And so we already have the guest. So I want to welcome Guillermo Galvez. Or is it Guillermo Alonso Galvez Jr.? I don't know how you want to go about it.
Hello, Victor. It's Guillermo Alonso Galvez Jr.
Oh, I'm sorry. I messed that up too.
I can't tell you how many times people put the F in there, but it's all good. No worries.
All right. So I'm talking to the Guillermo Alonso Galvez, and he's the director, and not only director but also the actor of his own production, which I saw. I think I saw it last week, and then this morning, and it took a different meaning the second time I saw it this morning. I'm like, oh, okay, I can see the wind chimes, and
very
they
cool,
mean something.
very cool.
So that's interesting. So anyway, without further ado, welcome to the show. And it's been a few years, right? I don't even know, a decade since we actually used to work together before. You probably recall the call center days, right?
Yeah, absolutely. You and I used to work.
I'm sure I met you before.
Yeah, right. Oh, you seem familiar. No, I remember. Of course, we got hired at the same time for the call center for the cable company, and
Right.
It was interesting. I think you may have lasted longer than I did. I think I quit.
Yeah.
Before
Good for
I
you.
don't know what happened with you. Yeah. So I hear, but yeah, that's where we first met, and I remember us talking about film during that time, and here we are now.
And then you made your own film.
Yeah, thank goodness I did. Yeah.
What happened? I mean, how did that happen? How did that come about? Because I didn't know that you were. I mean, I actually don't recall us talking about movies, but now that you've made a movie, obviously you're way into the movie in making now. And being a director and being an actor and being a producer, I mean, that must be, what is it like to have your own film,
Yeah, so how that came about is shortly after, when we worked together, I enrolled into this private film school, and I went for maybe a couple of quarters. So that turns into maybe a semester, and I'm not knocking film school. I think it's great, but it just wasn't the route for me. And along the way, I just really built my passion for film. I realized that was something I really wanted to do, and flash forward to now, how it came about is, a year and a half ago, I just started writing. I had made a couple of scripts, and in January last year, I started making this new one. And so rough drafting, and then March happened, and then just fledged it out. So from March to May was the main thing of just, okay, I have this script, and I just had that fire to just really kind of, make it into reality. So thank goodness I know people who went down the film route, and they were more than supportive, and they really helped me to make this happen. And so since it was my first time doing it, I didn't know of this person's a producer, this person's this and that. I just kind of took it upon myself to just make it happen.
Which is actually not an easy task. I mean, being yeah, being a director is one thing, but then being a director in the movie that you're starring in, I can imagine how much more pressure that's on you because I don't even know how you do that because I myself I'm a producer and director, and now I'm transitioning to the acting part this year. Well, supposedly this year, we'll see what happens.
Mhm.
But you know what I mean? Like some people that I've met during the Hollywood Fringe Festival that I was part of in the last couple of years, people tell me, even people that are really good actors, they tell me it's like, oh, I could not direct this myself. I have to have a director. So how was it for you to direct your own film that you're starring in?
It was it was challenging, and that is the lightest I'll put it. Because this was my first project, I was very ambitious, and I felt, the character I wrote, I identified with 100%. And because this was my first project, I felt the best fit for the character, and because I wanted to tell the story, I felt like I was also the best fit for the director. And it's very challenging. Behind the
Mm-hmm.
camera, you have to focus on everything, and then you trust your assistant director to kind of guide it while you're in front of the camera. It's very challenging, very difficult, but very rewarding. I mean, I wouldn't suggest it for anyone's first time, but it was intense. A lot of lessons learned. Yeah.
Yeah. No, actually, and I will say this on air because I've seen I've seen a lot of movies, independent movies as well. I was invited to actually a friend of mine, Patricia Mizan. She did a great short film, and she invited me to the festival. It's a short film festival going on, and so I went. And some movies are like, how in the hell did this get through? And
okay, right. Like, okay, yes.
they're so bad. I'm like, dude, anybody could have done this film. Like, yeah. I mean, not her film. Her film is amazing, but
Sure,
and
yeah,
I can
I'm
tell that
not
she,
speaking on that.
not to talk about her film because it was a great film. And some others were like amazing. I'm like, wow, this is just 5 minutes long or 10 minutes long, but it could have been longer. I wish it had been longer.
Yeah.
And so yeah, it's interesting. The short film, it's a different genre and a different storytelling. It's just not because it's shorter, but it just punches you in the gut. Like, wow, that's amazing. And it's only 10 minutes long, and it just touched me, and I cried, or I laughed, or whatever. That could have been accomplished by The Irishman, which I spent 3 hours in the movie theater trying to feel anything. And I'm sorry to knock Martin Scorsese here, but you know what I mean. Like, the movie doesn't have to be 3 hours long for you to be impacted by it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's the amazing thing about film. You see some movies and you're like, really, like, this made it into an actual theater. And there are a lot of films out there that are on YouTube that are like, why isn't this being exposed? And that's the great thing about film is that it's just such a plethora of different voices, different ideas that, some make it through and some don't. And it's just I don't know, it's just kind of like a mystery bag of stuff that it's all about taste and it's all about people's, their preferences. And that's why when you make something, just like your friend or, the person that, didn't make that great film, like, they hope that it resonates with some people. And it only takes one person to resonate with, And to speak on The Irishman, I kind of agree. I mean, I love Martin Scorsese. Love him, love him, love him. It was a good film, but not my favorite Scorsese film. You know, but yeah, I think that's the great thing about it. It's films are always open to interpretation, always open to new ideas, always open to, you know. Yeah, so it's great. It's great.
Right. No, but your film. So tell us about your film because we're talking about it and people that haven't seen it and haven't heard about it. And I don't want to spoil anything because I usually spoil every movie. So why don't you do the honors and tell us about Wind Chime?
Yeah, thank you. So Wind Chime is a drama that follows an engaged couple, Val and Lena, who are about to go on their anniversary trip of their engagement, and things go sideways. And it's really it's really about a story about Val, who is a character that is troubled, who has his demons, and he's learning to really how to really handle his life and what it's become. And that's the best way I can put it without giving anything away. And I think Wind Chime it has a lot of things that a lot of people can relate to, things that I think every single person has experienced in their life.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, that's a great way to put it without giving anything away.
Yeah.
But yeah, for for those that would like to see it and would like to, I actually don't like to sometimes spoil anything before people see. If it's a great movie, like yours is a great movie, and I wouldn't want to spoil it for anybody because it's only 18 minutes long?
It's, 18 minutes, 18 seconds.
Right. So come on.
Which was not
you can spend that time, you know, watching the news or whatever you're watching, and frankly, you don't want to watch the news right now. So just give it a chance and see what happens, right? But
right.
actually, I think it speaks on different levels. Not only about the relationship between Val and I'm sorry, I forget the other character's name.
Her name's
his
Lena.
girlfriend, or so not only the relationship that they have, which is very romantic, very loving, very caring, very your relation is it started as a typical love story, right? And then it quickly turned into another story, and I'm not going to give it away, but it actually touches on different levels, on different things right away. As soon as the Val character gets off the bed and knocks off the one thing that's on the side of the bed, I'm like, oh, okay, now I understand where this is going. And so that was the first time I saw it, by the way. I didn't really have to see it twice to understand that. So the way that you did it is so subtle, and also the colors that you use, because it was a kind of a flashback moments, and I noticed that you use different colors or different tones on different scenes, right? So that you can tell there's a flashback. And so that was a really subtle way to say this is a flashback, and now we're back to the present. So it was really well done because you don't have to tell me, you know what I mean? You don't have to say, okay, this happened a year ago or this happened whenever ago. I like to actually see how it flows so well, And I don't know if you did that intentionally, but I'm sure you did. But
so with the different tones and the colors, and so what you're referring to is the flashback when he wakes up and he turns over to the side of his bed and he bottles alcohol. these colors and tones were done intentionally. My director of photography, who was also the editor, Steven Clavijo, I told him, and we both agreed that we're telling a story that's taking both place in the past tense and the present tense. And the past tense is depicting, a more brighter, happier time with Lena and Val. So we wanted, a brighter tone, brighter colors, almost softer. It was more of a softer tone. And when it came to the present, when you're seeing Val kind of coping with himself and his past, we wanted darker, a lot more shadows, kind of darker themes in that way. So that was a good catch by you. Yeah, we wanted the audience to know, like, because for me, like, there are some movies I see, and sometimes when they're telling between past and present, I do get lost. Not that they didn't spell it out hard enough. It was just, for me, I get lost easily. So in this case, I thought, well, if I was the audience member, how can I for sure let them know that these are two different timelines? And that was the best way we thought was best to,
Right. Yeah. I like the scenes where Val and Lena are together, or Dina are together, a lot, because there's a lot of sunshine, and there's a lot of brightness, and there's a romanticized relationship, right? And I think that's actually, it's a good balance, because of course you have the other side of the story. And so I was glad that you ended up how you ended up, even though we don't know what's going to happen to Val. We can only imagine what's going to happen to Val. But yeah, man, you guys have to see it. I don't want to give it away anymore. But those that want to see it, I don't know how can they see this movie.
Yeah. So the thing is that it's currently in different submissions for different film festivals. We got officially selected for Indie Short Fest, which is kind of like hosted by IMDb. So right now I can't put it on YouTube, because some film festivals, they don't allow acceptance if it's on another platform. But Victor, I will let you know ASAP once the green light is a go, to just kind of share it with the world. And yeah, because trust me, I'm dying to just put it out there. Like, I want to so badly, but once once the season of festivals is over, then that's what I'll do.
Cool. Yeah, because I like to meet the people behind it, because even if you see so many characters in the story, and I don't know how many cast members were in your story, but it would probably be around 10 or something. I can tell there's so much more going on behind the scenes. So I can tell there's a lot of work that went into it. It wasn't just a one-day shooting kind of thing. So, by the way, where was it shot? Because I was trying to recognize. I'm like, was it shot in the valley, or?
Yeah, it definitely was all shot in the valley. In fact, I was a little bummed out because we needed to cut the time on it. But initially there were shots of different streets of the valley, so Sherman Way and Corbin and different parts. But all of it was shot in the valley. Yeah, and a couple of the locations were shot at like my friends' places, my friend's place of work. My father was really nice to let me use his place, so
yeah. Cool, man. Cool. Can I just share one thing about the movie that it's not going to give it anything away? I don't think. But the second time that
I'm thinking about it. Just let's talk about it. I mean, people will watch it. Doesn't matter what we say.
Right.
You know, let's just
Okay.
any questions you have about it. If it gives anything away, go for it.
I'm not gonna give it all away, but I'm just saying that in the beginning and throughout the story, because the movie is called Wind Chime for a reason. And the first time I saw it, I'm like, well, why is it called Wind Chime? I didn't really get it. And then the second time I saw it, I'm like, oh, okay, I understand. It's to me the presence of Lena, right? Is that what it means? Because to me, it meant like she's present, and he didn't notice it the second time because the first time that he gets awoken by the wind chime, and that's when they have the flashback, and then the second time I think he went to his friend's house, and the wind chime was there, and then towards the end there was another scene about Val and Lena talking about the wind chime and what it represented to her. And I was like, okay.
Yeah.
So I thought that was really clever.
Thank you. Yeah. So
go ahead.
You're absolutely right. I think the wind chime metaphor falls under certain levels, and like you said, her presence, she's very symbolic for the wind chime. Like you said, throughout the film, he comes across different types of wind chimes, whether it's the noise, whether it's an actual physical wind chime, like when he goes to the friend's house. I think it's very much so her trying to remind him of something, which at the end, during her monologue, she does say, like, life is unpredictable. We can't control things around us. We can only control things that we can control ourselves, but that doesn't mean we can control life. Life is very unpredictable. We just have to kind of, just go along with it and kind of roll with the punches. And in a sense, Val throughout the whole movie, he's kind of holding on. He's holding on for dear life, just really trying to change things. And at the end, once we hear Lena kind of explain to Val what this, what a wind chime was explained to her as, he kind of realizes, like, I can't do this. I can't hold on anymore. I just kind of need to let go and let life take its course.
Right.
And to heal.
And that's when the water war started. I'm like, okay. Second time was a better. Well, made a lot of more sense. I was like, oh, that's deep. Yeah, because sometimes when you lose people, I'm not trying to give it away, but when you lose people and a song comes on, and you're thinking about that person, and a song comes on right at the moment when you're thinking about that person, you're like, wait a minute, this song, I remember this song. This is a message. And to me, it happened to me, like, clearly it happened to me. So, and it was my uncle's. And I'm like, wow. And are they here? And are they in the back seat of my car? And I can feel the message coming through, the lyrics too. And I'm like, oh my God, this is happening, right? So it may seem trivial, it may seem subtle, but if you're paying attention, there's a message, and there's a message also on the road. Like you see a sign and you're saying, why is that sign there? Is that sign telling me something? And it's the stuff like that is just really interesting, and to me. And of course, I was doing Uber and Lyft last year until coronavirus, but that sometimes messages come to you where you least suspect them, and then you have to be alert. You're like, oh, that's what I needed to know. Okay. I don't know if that makes any sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, I think a lot of people do this, but especially Val in this movie, he's just in his head, and he doesn't listen to anybody or anything. He's so set in his ways, and it takes an outside thing to kind of bring you back to earth, kind of remind you of what life is about, maybe tell you a message, and kind of get you back on track. And I think, that's what this movie has a little story to tell about. Like, it's, Val is going through these terrible times. His life is unmanageable, and the wind chime itself is really, it's really a message from Lena, from the universe, if you will, about just kind of letting go,
Right. Well, did you write this script? You say you wrote the script, right?
Yeah, so I wrote it, acted, directed, produced.
Right. So what inspired this story? Why Wind Chime?
So it's funny. I had this other script that revolved around a bank robbery, like, a very surface level bank robbery kind of thriller. And then I said, I'm gonna kind of continue to do that. But as I started like working on that, it just turned into something else. And I started writing, these different characters, and once I got to Val, I started writing a character that I really identified with. And someone that I kind of like just put myself in this character. And Wind Chime, on a surface level is about love and loss. But above that, it very much has to do with like ideas of mental health, addiction, and things of that nature. And for myself, and a lot of people do have issues with like mental health and stuff of that nature. So I kind of wanted to like put that on paper, and that got the ball rolling, really. And everything else just followed. And that's kind of how I work with like my script writing. It's more of making characters first, and then kind of making scenes from ending to beginning, really, because that's how this one happened. Like the whole ending was written first, and then went to the beginning.
Right. I mean, yeah. So I actually like I like what she says at the end to him. And I'm like, that was really good writing right there. I'm like, wow, that's cool. So it's very, very, not only very, in my opinion, it's kind of poetic, but also is very, I don't know, very spiritual. Just be in the moment. Like, why are you? The wind chime is unpredictable, so that makes sense. And it's just cool. You never know where the inspiration is going to come from a wind chime, or from a train, or from whatever, right? A bird may come to you, or I don't know. It's just very, to me, it's very strange, but it's also very cool to hear where ideas came from, right? So that's why I was asking.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when I wrote that little monologue, I was a little proud. I was like, okay, this is kind of like it just flowed out. Like I felt like I was almost talking to myself, really. And I think that message that Lena gives to Val is something that a lot of people should hear. Like take care of yourself, and just everything will work out. Just it's all good.
Right. Well, especially in these times,
Yeah.
So we have to literally take care of ourselves.
Yeah, take care of yourselves. And it's funny. I was thinking about it, and yeah, that monologue. What Lena tells Val. It's so relevant right now. And especially it's hard. It's hard quarantining, man. Like it's very hard, and people just need to take care of themselves, take care of their health, and yeah, it's kind of funny how that all happened.
Well, and it's like the scene, where what's the name of the character, the friend character?
Oh, David.
David. Okay. So it's interesting because he was talking to David, and David was like, "Hey, how's it going? How you been, and how you handling this and that, and and then when they have the argument, I think he says it's like Val says, "Well, where have you been? Where have you been all this time, right?" And the guy says, "I've always been here."
Right.
So it's interesting to me because now that we have social distancing and we have social media and then or whatever, Facebook and stuff, we still don't pick up the phone and call somebody to say how you doing. We don't do that, and it's kind of rude sometimes. It's like, why are you calling me? You should be texting me. Text me first, and
right.
and I don't know. To me, the quickest way to get to somebody is calling them, right? And I'm from that old school time where you pick up the phone and call somebody, and just asking how's their day going. Simply, like my grandmother right now, she's in a home, and I'm not able to to walk in and just tell her how are you doing. So it just takes a minute, I mean, it's especially if you're dealing with mental issues or everybody has a mental condition, okay? So all it takes is just a phone call or text, or if you want to send an emoticon or emoji or whatever. But if you think of somebody that tells you then that person needs you right now to just say, how are you? I don't know.
Absolutely.
It sounds simple, right?
It sounds so simple, but people make it harder than it should be. And you're absolutely right. We're in a time and age where people would rather a text than a phone call. And it's funny that you bring up that David thing because you don't know what you have until you lose it. And now society at this point in time, we have lost that social connection, that connection with our fellow brother, sister, friend, mother, father, and now we're really starting to feel the effects. And I think we take that for granted when we were able to talk to people. And like you said, everyone to a certain degree does have a mental issue, a mental disability, mental illness, whether it's anxiety or depression, and that's kind of what I wanted to put forward in this movie as well. Untreated, Val, he's an alcoholic. He's an alcoholic because he experienced some PTSD that he cannot get over, and he's coping with through alcohol. And like you said, David says, I've always been here, but Val is just so stuck that he doesn't see that.
Right.
And that's why I think this film is very relevant right now because, people are struggling with, kind of staying isolated and all this stuff. And, like you said, just picking up the phone and calling or sending a text, an emoji, it goes so far. It goes so far. And I just think it's so important for people right now, or in general, to just take care of their mental health,
And we were trained. I'm laughing because you and I have been trained to be on the phones, right? and I hated to be on the phones. I so hated to be on the phones after the call center, right? But
Oh
it
God,
taught me
yeah.
something. It taught me to be compassionate because some people that were calling the cable company were lonely people.
Yeah. Yeah.
they didn't want to talk to their relatives or their friends. Like remember Encino Man? I don't know if you were around, but there was a guy called Encino Man, and he would call from
Mhm.
Encino and just complain for hours, and drop and hang up the phone and call again because he just needed to talk to vent. And
Right.
I just
Right.
and I mean it was funny to us. It's like, oh my God, Encino Man is around. Is in the lose on the loose
Yeah.
again because he wouldn't call for a
Uh,
while. And all of a sudden you're like, oh, I miss Encino Man. He would just pick up the phone and say, get a real job, and hang up. I'm like, oh, okay.
And it's so funny because in the call center, people would just come and complain and complain and complain and vent and vent and vent, and you listen to them and you say, okay, well I can do this, and they'll be like, nah, it's fine, I'm fine. And I'm like,
Right.
oh, okay, well, thanks for calling. I don't know what to tell you.
Right.
That is so true.
They just needed to vent. Is all they wanted to do. It's like, I just wanted to talk to somebody for 5 minutes, and I've been holding for an hour, and now,
Right.
interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Any-
Exactly.
Yeah. But going back to Wind Chime, though, I do actually commend you for what you did. It's not easy to do that. I can tell you, I can see how much work you put into it, and producing and directing and acting in it. It's not that you've done it. I mean, now you know better, right? But I think it's.
Yeah.
I mean, now you can do anything, right?
Yeah, God, the next one is, I'm not going to say it's going to be cake, but damn, it's going to be cake. Like,
Yeah. Sometimes you have to like trust somebody else to take the directorial debut, or you know what I mean. And I'm laughing because I'm also the same
yeah.
way. I'm like, I wanted to be in charge of everything the first time. I wanted to be the producer. I wanted to be the director, and I wanted to be in the theater, the stage. And then I was thinking, I'm like, man, this is not easy. Just being a producer
No,
itself is
not at
not
all.
easy, and
Yeah,
people have no idea.
yeah, and you nailed it on the head. Sometimes you just got to trust your crew for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I will say this, I had a fantastic director of photography, Steven, my assistant director, Brian, and everyone around them, even the actors, because the actors that were in this film, this was my first go-around, and this wasn't for them. And if it wasn't for all of them and just me trusting them, this would not have happened. So you got to just really trust the people you surround yourself with,
There you go. Yeah. So yeah, shout out to your cast and crew there, and you, of course. Everybody did amazing. It's a story that you have to see for yourself, and you have to. It will hopefully will teach you something, and it will shake you up a little bit at the end. And that's all I'm gonna say. And hopefully, it goes to hopefully goes to festivals. It hopefully goes to whatever has to go. Hopefully, Sundance or Slam Dance or whatever dance
Hell,
festival,
any
right?
dance, yeah.
Right. I'll dance too. So yeah. So what's next for you? What's the next project? What's your next? What are you working on besides Wind Chime?
Other than trying to get Wind Chime out there, I've been mulling over a couple of ideas, but nothing yet. Lately I've been on a big horror kick. Scary movies for some reason. I don't know if it's the quarantine or what. I've always loved them, but right now it's just kind of like an obsession. So I've been really inspired by, especially there's a director, his name's Ari Aster, and he did Hereditary, he did Midsummer, and
oh yeah,
God damn,
oh
those
my gosh,
movies are just
Midsummer just shook
so
me.
good.
Yes.
Yeah, Midsummer was like wow, like
yeah, the ending was like
he, yeah, and like he knows, sometimes or not sometimes, it's a lot scarier to not see something scary, but to feel it, and just the tension. And to me, he's the next big horror king.
yeah,
But
oh yeah,
but
I'm with you with that one.
That's yeah. So if it's not drama that I want to do, then maybe the next thing will be horror. But my go-to, like instinctually, is drama right now. So.
Yeah, and you do it well. I mean, you show it on this movie. It's actually, it actually touched me. So it's like, okay, and I'm a very critical person. So anyhow, I had those days or I have those. Yeah, I was very critical. But now that I'm on the other side, I'm like, okay, let's just have a little bit of compassion, people. He made it, okay? It's like, come on, that alone takes credit. So
trust me, I've learned the same thing. Before I made a movie, I was very like, oh, I could blah blah blah, and then after I made it, I'm like, listen, it's not that easy.
Yeah.
So the point is, people put their heart into it, and that's all that matters.
Right. But anyhow, Guillermo, we're actually towards the end of the show. How do people follow you on Facebook or Instagram or whatnot? So I'm going to put the link below, but anything you want to say before we wrap it up?
Yeah, so you can follow me at G_Alonso_Galvez. Alonso spelled Alonso, no F. And anyone listening that wants to be a part of film, who wants to make film, you don't know until you try. And putting yourself out there is the best thing you can do, because if you take the chance, then you have the chance to make it. If you don't, then you'll never know. That's the one thing I learned. And I got a question for you, Victor, since we did speak about good old, awesome Martin Scorsese. What is your favorite Scorsese film?
Okay, before we go, because we have 20 seconds, I will say Cape Fear, and then Taxi Driver.
Woo! Okay, good picks. I will say The Departed and Raging Bull.
There we go. All right, guys, that's a wrap. I'll call you in a minute, but let me take you out with Didn't See That Coming.
We are go for liftoff in T-minus 30.
Hit the record button.
Gosh, that's swell. Well, I didn't see that coming.